As current president of NARP, I've been with NARP Charlotte for 4 years. I was secretary for 2 years, vice president for 1 year, and this is almost towards the end. And needless to say, this has been an incredibly challenging year because we've had to refocus on how we're going to reach everything, and not only for us, but for everybody. But I think that one of the things that at NARP national level, we have very specific statements and missions and goals that we have, and defined primarily by three. One of them is the shortage of inventory. So how do we improve our inventory to reach the needs of our Hispanic community, because there are different needs. And then the second is immigration, not in the political sense of migration, but more immigration because a lot of our community, you worked extensively with the migrant community, but also it affects, because there's usually at least one family member in that nucleus that is not documented. So it's learning how we can help someone that is not a Social Security borrower. What other options are available? So it's just understanding, okay, so you're not Social Security, you have a work permit, or you have different needs. So then it's how do we direct them to those particular funding bankers or and primarily credit unions that are going to help you. So, and then the third one is access to credit. Because that's one of our biggest challenges. So we focus a lot on education. By focusing on education, we primarily focus on, so many times our first-time home buyers, they don't have credit lines established. They don't even have, maybe not all of them have the tax returns that the bank requires. So therefore it's okay. So this is where we're going to start, and this is what we need to do during this next year or the next 6 months so that you can prepare. And it's how many credit cards do you have? Do you have bank information? How do you receive your funds? Do you receive your money from cash, or do you receive it through a check? How do you get paid, and how do you document so it's just really focusing on how we can help them attain that goal of being a homeowner. And many times it's just holding them by the hand. And it becomes more of a challenge because of what you said, which is you have to first establish that trust. It's building on that relationship. American culture tends to be, okay, let's sit down, let's talk, let's focus on what we want. We're task-oriented, we're goal-oriented, but in the Hispanic community, it's like, hey, how's the grandkid? How's the family? What did you have for dinner? And so it becomes a different kind of a warming up, and it takes more time for us to build that relationship. It's not as easy and as fast as a lot of people do. So that's part of the challenges. And also, I think we get lumped into Hispanics are all the same, and we're not. I am from Mexican background. I am an immigrant to the United States. I came when I was 4 years old, but I've been totally educated in the United States. And my mentality as a person that is of immigrant background, but raised in the United States, is a little bit different from someone that came to the United States as an adult or as a teenager, because you come with a lot of preconceived ideas. And so there's a big difference and a big challenge with that as well. And so it's just understanding all those little things that affect it. And we all speak Spanish, but we don't all speak the same language. What you said is ahorita, as a Mexican, ahorita means, okay, let's do it now. Ahorita in another culture is, okay, I'll get to it whenever I can. So it's understanding those little nuances that make a big difference. But the most important thing is also understanding, as far as culture, is understanding that it's a family affair. It's not just one individual that has the power to make a decision. I have a grown son, college educated, lives in Washington, D.C., got a lease. He called me and says, hey, Mom, I'm getting a lease. Can you go over it? And I said, okay, sure. And he says, yeah, I'm not going to sign it until you go over it. So this is the kind of things that we face all the time, is that we still kind of, there's still that level of the elderly still makes a big contribution to the decision making, and if you ignore that, it's going to be pretty challenging. And when somebody wants to see a house, you might go see the same house 3 times because grandma didn't come, or my cousin didn't make it, or my mother now wants to see it again. So it's not as fast, and it doesn't flow the same way as it would for normal. Okay, I'm gonna go see the house and I'll give you pictures and I'll tell you. For us, no, it's like they want to feel it, they want to see it. So it's just a little bit more of a, and understanding those differences make life for us a little bit easier to handle, because you understand that language is only part of the challenge. It's really the culture that's most challenging, because every culture is a little bit different. So how do you get around that? I don't know. It's very challenging because the African American or the Black community, you don't have a language problem. For us, we do, and so it's like we can only translate so much before we get to somebody else. So like I have a client that called me yesterday. She says, "Hey Anna, I need for you to translate something for me." I closed on a house with her 2 years ago, and she's calling me right now to help her with something. Hey, can you be a part of this phone call tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock so you can help me understand what they're saying? So that's the kind of relationships we built on. And that's, to me, it's the fascinating part of what we do. To me, that's where it becomes worthwhile, because you influence people, or you touch people in a lot of different ways. It's not just buying the home, but it's continuing that relationship with them.
Yeah, that's what I found to be so meaningful about working in the Latino immigrant community, was just the deep relationships and bonds that you develop with people. And a lot of that is because of some of the cultural nuances you mentioned around kind of needing to build that personal connection before getting into the tasks or getting down to business. So you brought up a few really important points here around building trust and understanding that things are very family oriented. Education is really key. You, on the webinar that we presented on, you mentioned how important sustainable homeownership is. So in communities that have maybe less financial education or less experience in buying a home, what are some of the recommendations you have around providing that education? Is it all relationship based or getting out in the community? What are your thoughts on that?
Like for us, as far as NARP, one of the things that unfortunately a lot of the challenges that we faced, we couldn't really fulfill. We had this huge agenda, but I think that creating partnerships with different financial institutions, because every financial institution is a little bit different. Like, say, for example, right now we're working with Wells Fargo. Phenomenal partner. I know of at least one Spanish-speaking agent with every single banking institution here, whether it's a credit union or whether it's a mortgage broker or whether it's Bank of America or Wells Fargo or Truist. And it's really understanding, because a lot of times the Hispanic community, I have my checking account at Bank of America, so I'm going to go to Bank of America. They don't see that maybe it's another broker. They see that's where I hold my money, so that's who's going to make the loan. So if that's the case, then we connect them to that particular loan officer that is part of our partnership. A couple of years ago, part of what we did with NAREP is we did what we called the Battle of the Lenders. And basically all it was is giving a platform to all of the different lenders so that they could educate us as realtors. What is in my portfolio that will help your client? Because there's some that offer one program, and the majority of them, I understand that it doesn't always come down to interest rate. It comes down to what service you provide. It's like, if I'm short of cash to buy my first home, okay, down payment assistance is only part of it. What about closing costs? Closing cost is more of a challenge than down payment assistance, because Closing cost is something that we can borrow against. So if we have to be in a position where we have to ask the seller to make contributions in order to have them meet their challenge or their goal, so it becomes a little bit more of a challenge, especially in a highly competitive market that we're in right now. So it's understanding, you as a lender, what kind of credits can you give my client to assist with closing costs? Because everyone can give you 3% down, I'll give you $5,000 or whatever. So it's really understanding what kind of program is out there that you as a lender offer to meet the needs of this community. And so one of the things that we did that was very good with the Battle of the Lenders is we gave the platform, okay, you Bank of America, tell me what you offer in your portfolio that will help me. Wells Fargo, Truist, Movement Mortgage, credit union. So it's just really understanding, and that's where those partnerships are super important. And fortunately for NAREP, a lot of our sponsors, which I call them partners, are lenders. So it's easy to develop those relationships with them. Like I have an event tomorrow with it's the historical perspective of the impact of the Hispanic community in the Charlotte community. It's being sponsored by Truist. So Truist, I'm pretty sure, is going to highlight, I as Truist offer these kind of particular programs or tools or programs to facilitate the buying within the Hispanic community. So that's how we kind of educate, because it gives the platform to the lender.
That's great. And you brought up a couple times about how this year has just gone so differently for NAREP and everyone. But are there any points that you want to get across in terms of like how COVID may have impacted the Hispanic and Latino population specifically, or any kind of shift that you've had at NAREP in providing, I guess, more information and services in this community?
I think all in all, if I look at my client base, which I work a lot with first-time home buyers, and I just find that working with some of these buyers is very rewarding, because there's nothing as special as being able to give someone a key. And I work with a lot of people that, it's a process. It's not immediate. Okay, it's like, okay, in order for you to buy a home, A, B, C, and D needs to happen before we can get to that thing. And also the biggest challenge in working with a lot of these communities is they're not as tech oriented. So a lot of them are face to face. A lot of them is, oh, no, I don't have a computer. I work everything from my phone. So you can't send them big attachments, or they want to sign in person. They don't want to do DocuSign, or they have a problem in doing a DocuSign. So it has to be a face to face. I have a lot of my clients who are, they just won't sign a document unless I sit down and review it. And I can't just send it over my as an attachment, and then they open it because they might not have a computer, or they just say, no, it's in English. Why don't you sit down and review it? Or I'll meet you at the office. And then so I get the mom, the dad, the children and all that, and I meet them at the office, and we just go over the documents because they want to physically sign it. They don't do the DocuSign. So that's where the challenge came in with COVID.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I was wondering if that might speed up the process of adopting technology, and maybe that's still yet to be seen. But I've been actually working on a technology that I wanted to focus on better, or partnering with community leaders and nonprofits and that kind of thing to provide the application process and education through a technology. But it's really hard to imagine that being effective in a community that is so face-to-face. And so maybe through community partners that can work. But do you think that we'll see a shift in speeding up that adoption of technology or building trust through that type of platform?
I think what is happening is as you get into first and second generation of the Hispanic community, that changes definitely. It's the older generation where, it's like, no, I'm not tech savvy. You have to sit with me. But you might have a millennial that's all they do is do it. Like I just closed on a property last week or something like that. The mother is the homeowner, but she has a son that's in his early 20s. So everything that she did, send it to my son also so that he can help me do the DocuSign so that he could open the thing. And I would call her and I said, did you get my document that I sent? And she said, oh no, let me ask my son. So that's where our challenge is, because here I am, I'm dealing with the buyer, but she's dealing with her son in order to facilitate the technology. And that's where it becomes not impossible. It's just learn how to deal with it. That's what we do. You know, that's the way it is. So that's how we do it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share today. It was great hearing from you. And is there anything that you want to, how can people be in touch with you or follow what you're doing or NAREP is doing?
We have narepcharlotte.org, which is our main webpage here for the Charlotte area. Our information is there. But you have my email address. If there's anything, you know, it looks like you work a lot within the Hispanic community, and that's really gratifying to hear. I think that that's amazing, especially someone that is as you are a big influencer, because you're able to send out a message to a greater number of people of some of the challenges that we face. But I think that one of the things that I have really focused on is the networking part. You know, it's like I'm very involved with the Latin American Chamber of Commerce, and through the Chamber of Commerce, there's a leadership committee that has maybe sometimes between 50 to 100 people are on this call, and it's just networking, and it's just these are the influencers within the Hispanic community in Charlotte. And I think that by becoming involved with those kind of outreach programs has really been beneficial to me, because you learn to know who the movers and shakers are in the community, but more than anything else is now they associate that this is NAREP because I am the face of NAREP. So I think that's been part of the, especially with COVID, where so much information has been focused on COVID. But if you're part of that network, then you know that, you know, they start saying your name. So one of the things that we did was we became incredibly involved with Get the Vote Out, because the Hispanic community does not vote. You know, so it's like, how do we help, you know, get the vote out? I don't care who you vote for, but just be conscious that your vote does matter, that you are an important voice. So that's how we network. That's how we get involved as a chapter with helping the community by helping those kind of things. One of our next focuses is the landlord-tenant forbearance, and also the evictions. You know, there's a lot of evictions that are happening. So we're getting very involved with, you know, yeah, you can help the tenant, but what about the landlord? The landlord is going to lose the property if we don't get the money to trickle down to the landlord. The tenant's going to be evicted because the landlord's going to lose their home. So it's creating a balance with that, and that's part of what we get involved with. That's part of the things that I think is really important, because it gives us purpose.
That's awesome. Well, I'm really excited to share this with everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time today.